Let us offer our consecration to the Lord. Lord, we offer up to you this day that we may come to serve you and be open to all you call us to. We ask that we may be filled with your Spirit and that we may seek to know you, love you, and serve you. And we ask this through Christ our Lord. Well, it is the 14th of August, 2023. And if you happen to be in the state of Rhode Island, today is a holiday. It's a Monday holiday. It was originally August 9th, and it stood for Victory over Japan, which they have changed to Victory Day. Interesting little story of how I learned that. It was the 1980s. I had some friends visiting from California. And somehow, I don't know how we ended up there. Maybe we were visiting Newport or something. But anyway, we ended up in Rhode Island. And we went to, I believe it's called Newport Creamery, if I have this right. And one of my friends ordered what he called a frappe. And of course, those of us from New England know this is a frap. So immediately they knew that he wasn't from New England, that the other two, obviously, the two weren't. I'm the only one who's from New England. And so the waitress started speaking to us and talking to us about Rhode Island and everything. And then she explained that very day was what she called, and I've since learned this is an uncouth expression for the day, VJ Day. There was VE Day, Victory over Europe, and VJ, Victory over Japan. So anyway, since then they have named it Victory Day. And August 9th, which was what the day was, is also the day they dropped the bomb on Nagasaki. So, yeah, she kind of found that to be an interesting day. Well, I was on Reddit, and I happened to put into the Providence forum, is it still celebrated in Rhode Island? And I guess it started a whole bunch of controversy and everything else. But in any case, it still is celebrated. It's called Victory Day, and it's in Rhode Island. So I think it's the only state in the Union that celebrates it. So to those of you who may be listening from Rhode Island, either by podcast or on 590 AM WEZE, a happy Victory Day to each and every one of you. Tomorrow, by the way, is the Assumption of Mary. So today is the vigil of the Assumption of Mary. So anyway, let's go back to our understanding of our readings today, or what the day is. But today is actually an interesting day. Even though the readings follow the same, I'd like to focus on the memorial of today, St. Maximilian Kolbe, priest and martyr. If you don't know about him, we've talked about him on the show before. He was a Polish priest. He was given an image at a very young age of an apparition of Mary showed up, and she offered him 2 crowns. One was, I forget what the 2 crowns were, but one was as a martyr, and the other one was as a saint, I think, or I forget what the 2 crowns were. I should know that. I should have checked that out before I started the radio show. But anyway, it's 2 crowns. And he chose both. So by default, he chose martyrdom. So anyway, he was very much focused on preaching the word and evangelizing people, and he started an order of Franciscans, and he was very much involved with spreading the gospel. And of course, he was very tied into the Franciscan way of life. Well, in any case, he ended up being arrested by the Nazis for evangelizing. And of course, he was doing this in Nazi-occupied Poland. And for evangelizing him, and they wanted him to stop. And finally, they sent him to Auschwitz. And there was a prisoner who escaped. And of course, I mean, going back to something I said to you before, and this would clearly be the case, even though he's in a prisoner of war per se, he was a prisoner for being Jewish. But he escaped. And because of that, and as I was saying, a prisoner of war has a duty to try to escape. Obviously, everyone knows that, so they do very hard to work, make sure they don't, but that's true. So anyway, he was in Auschwitz, this prisoner escaped, so that cell block, everyone was lined up, and 10 men were chosen randomly to die in place of this one escaped prisoner. And they chose a man, and he begged not to die, and instead Maximilian Kolbe, Father Maximilian Kolbe, stepped out of line and said something in the words of the effect, "Well, let me die in his place," which was a very risky thing to do if you think about it. Well, they said yes to that, sent the other guy back in line. Now, the reason why it was a risky thing to do is they could have just as well turned around and said, well, in that case, we'll take both of you. But they didn't. They sent the other guy back. He lived until somewhere in the 90s, in the 1990s. And Maximilian Kolbe died 10 days later, which we'll talk about in a minute. We'll be right back. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. And don't forget our website, CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. Check out our website, and you can do all kinds of... You can send us feedback. You can call us. You can leave a message. You can donate to us. You can do all kinds of things over there at CatholicAudiomedia.com. Well, anyway, we're talking about this important message where we're talking about St. Maximilian Kolbe. So they chose him to die as one of the 10 people. And what they did was they were going to starve them to death, which obviously would be a very painful death. So what he did is he led them in singing and praising the Lord. Because if you really think about it, as tragic as that would be, if they're saying, and now we're going to send you to your death, if you reverse that and say, well, then I'll be in heaven in a certain amount of time. And so anyway, he led them in praising and singing and celebrating the Lord, which probably drove the Nazis crazy. If you've ever heard my interview with Scott Schaefer Duffy, they put him in solitary confinement, and he was just praising the Lord. And the vent for the entire prison went into his cell, and probably other cells as well. And so his praising the Lord went all over the prison, drove them nuts. And so they took him out of solitary confinement. You can find him on CatholicAudioMediaInterviews.podbean.com or also at CatholicAudioMedia.com. It's one of my favorite interviews, Scott Schaefer Duffy. So anyway, so you can imagine it must have driven the Nazis crazy with them praising the Lord. And slowly, of course, all 10 men died, but he was the last to die, and they finally came in and they shot him, the Nazis. Interesting thing in light of that, because when Pope John Paul II became Pope, he brought up the idea of him being made saint, and of course he is a saint today. He's the one who I've mentioned before. He went to Japan to open up a monastery there, and the Japanese offered him a place in the center of Nagasaki, and he said, no, this is in 1933. The fireball is going to come here. Let's do it over on the other side of the hill. And of course, they had no idea what he was talking about. And now, many years later ago, he actually foresaw the atomic bombing of Nagasaki, which, by the way, in 1933, that wasn't even on anyone's plans. It wasn't even in anyone's thought, much less radar. So you can see how intense and important that was, and what the fruit of his prayer was. Well, I interviewed the associate producer of a film about Maximilian Kolbe called Two Crowns, and obviously refers to the Two Crowns I told at the beginning of the program. And I explained to him that one of my struggles, once I learned about Maximilian Kolbe back when I was in the Navy, is why would God, in all his power and glory, allow someone who sought to live this great holy life to go to Auschwitz? And it was always a mystery to me until I saw that movie. And then I realized it wasn't that he was sending him there or punishing him there or sending him there to do penance or anything else. He was sending him there. He was, well, it's not saying, he was better way to express it, which is what we believe as Catholics. It wasn't that he sent him there. He allowed him to go there because Maximilian Kolbe was the presence of Christ in this place that could best be described in the words of Man of La Mancha, to go into hell for a heavenly cause, because essentially he was serving God, letting people know that in spite the fact they were in one of the places that could epitomize human evil, which it was, that even God could not be kept out of there. And you have to realize, even though he died, I think in 1942 or 43, so long before the liberation of Auschwitz, but the stories about him would have roamed through the camps as well. So keep that in mind, too. That's all God's presence. We'll talk more tomorrow. I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. If you would like to support our program, please consider a donation to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. There are several ways to consider this. One is to purchase any of our merchandise, which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. There are coffee mugs there. There's also my latest book, Encounter Christ in Your Humanity, all of which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can also donate to the show directly through either the Donate tab, also at CatholicAudiomedia.com, or by sending a donation through the U.S. Postal Service with your questions and comments at 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. That's St. Anthony Parish, 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. Finally, the best way you can support our parish is to attend Mass on Sundays at 10 o'clock and be a part of our parish. We thank you for any support you would like to give to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts, the sponsoring parish for this media outreach to Catholics and other Christians in the WROL, WEZE, and podcast listening audience. In Cristo vivimos.